Hello, welcome back. We are Economics, I gotta step closer, Economics Help Video, and we have a website. I guess you already found that as you're looking at the videos. And it's econ, short for economicshelpvideos.com. Okay, I'm trying to keep it simple. We're trying to create a series of videos that will help, especially help, people studying introductory economics. There's two introductory economics courses, introductory microeconomics and introductory macroeconomics, and it should help for both. But we also think these videos could help all kinds of people. Moms and dads and professionals that want to review some stuff about the economy. Maybe if moms and dads and professionals have studied something else and not economics, this could be new for them. We believe it also could help maybe some high schoolers or middle schoolers, trying to figure out what they want to do in the future. They're pretty good students, are getting bored trying to figure out where math could apply, in the different parts of the economy in the world. And in economics, this could help them and give them some ideas about what they might want to do in the future. But especially this will help introductory students in economics, okay? Now, our philosophy is very, very old school and low tech. I'm writing on these presentation sheets by hand because I believe we believe a lot of the introductory models, you gotta work them out by hand to get them down well. So we're doing this low tech. My gang here helping me says it's almost so silly how these videos look, but we're doing it on purpose, okay? We're trying to connect in us doing it by hand on the video to you guys just doing the work, right? And I'll talk about that more at the end. Okay, this is video supply 02S, or 2S in other words, but I'll explain later about the 02S as we get going. And we're going to especially focus on a 4-word phrase called change in quantity supply, and also on the slope of the supply curve. Now, this connects in with these handouts that I have. This will be the second one, handout 2. I'm going to change the words around a little bit for you guys. And I drew on in the shell of the demand and supply graph instead. Remember, we're using quadrant 1 of the Cartesian plane geometry space because we're doing positive numbers. And instead of Y, we're using price. And instead of X, we're using quantity in the demand and supply model. So we're going to do the graph today right here. And then over here, there's room for you to do the slope work, okay? So I'm going to hold that close to see what. So a change in quantity demand is not the same thing. I'm sorry, a change in quantity supply is not the same thing as a change in supply. Becky's laughing at me. Betsy, I'm sorry, my greatest assistant. She's so wonderful. And we're going to focus in on a change in quantity supply, okay? So a change in quantity supply, 4 words, is not the same thing as a change in supply. And in the demand and supply model, if you don't get that down, it can be very, very confusing. Most likely, 90% of you guys, introductory students, are going to have multiple choice test questions. I don't give multiple choice test questions. I make my students draw all this stuff that drive them crazy. But they really, really learn it. And I tell them that that's what they need to do, so they go ahead and work on it. And then they do pretty well on the test if they practice it enough, right? They can do very, very well. Just try and be straightforward in the introductory classes, and then let the future courses get a little trickier if you're going to major or minor in economics. But anyway, we'll come back to this in a second, but we'll do some of the graph right now. Excuse me for a moment. I'll keep that nearby. So here's that graph that I was speaking of. I sort of tried to set it up a little bit. The market, we got to pick a marketplace when we're drawing a graph. So just picking a market for summer dresses. And this is again 2S. And really, what's going to come out of it is one of the definitions called the law of supply, right? We'll see the relationship between quantity, supply, and price. But we'll also learn about these tricky phrases, okay? So here we go. I started it up a little bit because things get so tight here. I gotta try to see if I can. So quantity per period of time on the horizontal axis. Here's our origin, our 0 point. The numbers get larger and are positive as we move from left to right, and the numbers increase as we go up, right, the vertical axis. So this is going to be our price axis, P for price, and that is expressed in dollars in the marketplaces of the United States, okay? Now I want to try and show you some stuff about supply, so I'm going to draw a supply curve. And I'm going to sort of cheat a little bit, but technically we would need a supply table, which production engineers and all kinds of other experts would help us estimate at each price level and a list of possible prices how much producers and sellers would offer for sale, okay? And what we're doing is saying that there's a positive relationship. So the supply curve is positively sloped as we move from left to right. The supply curve will rise, okay? Now, I'm just going to pick a couple of points. Again, doing this a little bit backwards. We would get the supply table and bring the order pairs over, plot them one by one, and then connect up the supply curve. Okay? So I've done the supply curve first. I'm going to pick a point and call that point 3. And what we do is we move around in the graphical world, always in perpendicular fashion, right? 90-degree angles. Okay? So we come over to the price axis. We're going to label that P3. We come down to the quantity axis, and we're going to label that Q, but since it's coming from the supply curve, we're going to call it QS3, since it's coming from point 3 also. Then I'm just going to pick another point, up a little bit further, point 4. And I'm going to go perpendicular to the price axis. What do you think I'm going to label that, right? P4? See, you guys can do this. Sorry, that's sorry. Okay, then we want to go down perpendicular to the quantity axis. Q for the quantity coming from the supply curve, S4. Now, moving from QS3 to QS4, we'll jump right into it. That is a change in quantity supply. Okay, right? So there's a change in quantity supply. QS3 to QS4. Okay. Now, the only way we can go from QS3 to QS4 is if we go from point 3 to point 4. The only way we can go from point 3 to point 4 is if the price changes from P3 to P4. Does that make sense? And a change in quantity supply is graphically the 4-word phrase, change in, do you remember that from math? So that's 2 words, change in quantity supply. 4 words in total, change in quantity supply is graphically illustrated by a movement along the same supply curve. And that's the kind of stuff we have right on our handout. The only variable that can cause a change in the quantity supply of summer dresses is a change in the price of dresses. And then that change in quantity supply is graphically illustrated by a movement along the same supply curve. Okay? So we talked about that on 1S, and I'm going to show you it over here again in a moment. Okay? So going from point 3 to point 4. The only variable that will cause a change in the quantity supply of summer dresses, that's the marketplace we're in, is a change in the price of summer dresses. Okay, let's go over the slope, and we'll talk that what'll pop out is the law of supply will come up again. So 2S, that's what we're working on now, the slope of the supply curve. What if we go from point 3 to point 4? So you may need to pause this and you'll catch up writing on the notes, okay? What happens? There's an increase in price when we go from point 3 to point 4, and there's an increase in the quantity supply because we go from QS3 to QS4. Okay? So the slope is measured by a fraction, right? The top and the bottom fraction. The top is the numerator, the bottom is the denominator. Remember that? In general math, we said change in y over change in x, right? The rise over the run kind of thing, if you remember from your math classes. Well, we don't have y and x here, okay? So what we have is price and quantity supply, okay? So we want to focus on change in price in the numerator, I'm sorry, yes, and then in the denominator, the change in quantity supply. Now, if P3 goes up to P4, that's going to be a positive change, right? And if QS3 goes up, right, remember the number line, QS3 goes up to QS4, right, quantity supply increases, that's a positive change. And in math, you know, a positive divided by a positive, right, in the fraction is going to give us an overall positive value. So we say the supply curve is positively sloped. And that's rationally true, right? What happens? Business people and managers and CEOs that run companies, they like it when price is going up. Price is their revenue per unit, right? And that could help them cover their costs better and potentially maybe help them make better profits. There's a lot of variables involved, but in general, they want to offer more for sale. Quantity supply goes up when price goes up. And then the vice versa holds true, which is what we're going to do right now. If price goes down, so will quantity supply. And let's see if we can prove that that's a positive slope too. Okay, what if we started off, somebody said, Professor Tommy, what if we start off at the other point? Is it still going to hold true? Let's go from point 4 to point 3. What happens now? Price goes from P4 to P3, that's a decrease. Okay. What if point 4 to point 3? Quantity supply goes from QS4 to QS3. That's a decrease, right? So when we go from point 4 to point 3, price goes down and quantity supply goes down. So once again, when we look at slope, not in the math world, but in the demand and supply model world, we want to look at the change in price, the slope of a supply curve, change in price over change in quantity supply. Again, if price goes down, that's going to be a negative change, right? And if quantity supply also goes down, that's going to be a negative change. And then what's the rule from math? If you have a fraction where both the numerator, the top, and the bottom, the denominator, are both negative, that actually flips the sign overall to being positive. Right? The opposite of a negative number, the negative of a negative number, flips around to being positive. So I sometimes think when you have two negatives, you can think of it this way. The opposite of a -2 is a +2, right? So the negative of a -2 is +2. Okay, so the slope's going to be positive. Okay, makes sense? So we got on a discussion just starting out that a change in quantity supply is not the same thing as a change in supply. Videos 3S and 4S will deal with the change in supply, the 3-word phrase, but here's how we deal with the phrase change in quantity supply. And I got to get behind the video, do some mechanical stuff now. Our great assistants, I'm so proud of them. They're off doing some special volunteer work. Courtney, who helps with all the slides, and the super genius person. Betsy's here always in the production booth. They never let her talk or get out of the booth. It's too expensive, I think. And Jake, our photographer, is not here. Oh, I keep messing up these videos. He's going to kill me. But here I go again. Okay, so I'm going to try and see if I can review some things. Last time, in 1S, we did the definitions, basic definitions of supply. Once again, here's the symbols that we use all the time in the demand and supply model. We do so many graphs. Oh, look at that. There's the website address. Holy smokes, how'd that get there? And remember from math, this is way too quick, but we use the Cartesian plane geometry space, leaning on number lines in the horizontal and vertical number line. But we're in quadrant 1 where both the variables are positive, and instead of y, we're going to do price, and instead of x, we're doing quantity. So once again, way too quick little learning model. I'm asking you guys to do the definitions and recognize and memorize and study and understand the basic terms. Then I'm going to help you with the applications, and that's where most of the course in an introductory course, that's pretty tough sometimes. It becomes something like a science and math class, economics, because of all the work and test questions coming at the applied level, okay? So we're Economics Help Videos, and once again, we think this is going to help introductory economics students, both micro and macro, and maybe even some professionals and moms and dads, and then maybe as those moms and dads think about it, it might even help engage their high schoolers and middle schoolers who are really good students trying to figure out what to do next, right? Now, we went over the Tough Times Bank one, that was 00S. The 1S was the supply definitions. Jake's gonna kill me, I'm messing this up totally. And then we just did some quick background stuff on the change in quantity supply, especially in slope. Then what's coming up next is if we change in 3S a basic determinant of supply, that causes a change in supply, the 3-word phrase, and that's graphically illustrated by a shift of the entire supply curve. So we show that on the graphs in 4S. And again, there's a tricky rule in the demand and supply model. The 3-word phrase change in supply is not the same thing as a change in quantity supply, the 4-word phrase. And a change in quantity supply is graphically illustrated by a movement along the same supply curve. But a change in supply coming up in 3S and 4S is graphically illustrated by a shift of the entire supply curve. If we have an increase in supply, it'll be a shift right. If we have a decrease in supply, it'll be a shift left. Now that's coming up, the graphs in 4S, and the words for the determinants of supply are in 3S, right? So they're in the next couple of videos coming up. Well, let me again apologize for my horrible photography and camera work. Jake's gonna be laughing at me. Here's our website, you probably have this already. I wanna thank you so much for viewing these videos, and we'll see you next time, okay? Thanks a lot.